Hi, I'm Rob Patz.
And I'm Kristen Stanton.
And this is the Rob and Kristen Show. Welcome to another week of the Rob and Kristen Show. It's good to be back.
It's a very special week, too.
It is? What's going on?
Valentine's Day.
Oh, no. I hope you bought a gift. I know I did already. And I haven't even asked you yet. Will you be my Valentine?
I would love to be your Valentine.
See, that's good because I can't take the gift back anyway. So I'm glad with that. Hey, listen, though, if you need an add-on gift, now I'm not saying you should get this as your regular gift, but if you need an add-on gift, go to mypillow.com. Use the promo code ATV when you check out. Get your wife a nice pillow to help her sleep and dream of you. That's what you put on the card.
Oh,
hey, honey,
that's good.
I bought you this pillow so at night when you sleep, you can dream of me. There you go.
That's
Use
really
the promo code ATV, get a special discount. And it's time though for something much more important than anything else during the show. It's 5 things we think you should know, and it is the Valentine's Day special edition of 5 things we think you should know. And this first one kind of blew me away. Mm-hmm. It did, spending wise. I mean, because I know that, it's expensive. Valentine's Day is an expensive day. The global spending for Valentine's Day, $26 billion.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Billion with a B.
Yes. The average person spends just a little over, they say it's about $193 or thereabouts, depending on who you talk to, depending how upset your wife is with you. That's where the level goes up and down. Interesting thing, though, the number one thing to get, of course, is flowers and candy. Those are the number one things to get for Valentine's Day. But the big purchase is, of course, jewelry. You can't go wrong with jewelry.
You can't go wrong with jewelry.
You can't. That is a money shot every time. Get the jewelry, boys and girls. Doesn't matter. You can go and of course, we're big into supporting local. Go to your local place, especially if you're watching this show and you're going, I didn't get anything. And we appreciate local.
But we appreciate flowers just as much as anything else, and candy. I mean, chocolate is always good.
Always good, but support local. If you do that, buy your flowers local. Get that stuff so that you can support the local people too. And I love plugging local.
Hey, did you know that in 1861 they started making heart-shaped candy boxes?
I was just before I was born, so yes, I did not know that.
No, so Richard Cadbury, the son of the Cadbury Company founder, decided that he was going to start making some fancy boxes to try to sell chocolate a little bit easier.
How smart is that?
Yeah, you go and you say, okay, I want some chocolate, but it's a lot neater if it's the chocolate comes in a fancy box. So in 1861, he came up with a heart-shaped box. And now there is over 36 million heart-shaped boxes of chocolates that sell every single year.
Awesome.
Now, that's 58 million pounds of chocolate.
That's what I feel like after eating all that stuff.
That's pretty neat.
It is. That's a cool thing, though. And I never thought of it because, boxes have been around. Now, the boxes have obviously gotten not as fancy as they were when we were younger. I remember my mom getting them, and they were solid. Now they're kind of flimsy. Of course, saving money and recycling. So I think that's what that is. The other thing, though, when you think back, is you remember those little candy?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love those little Necco hearts.
Yeah, the hearts, they say be mine or...
They have to be Necco, though. The
yeah,
Necco wafers.
The knockoff ones,
yeah.
they were never good.
No.
No. So thankfully I went to a school where everybody pretty much You could always tell the one kid that his mom didn't do it, his dad did, and just got the cheap ones. And you're like, no, this is wrong. This is completely wrong. But an interesting thought on this is they were started and were originally, for people that were having sore throat, they thought to have this. And it was really interesting. At the time, they were much bigger heart than what we have now. And then his brother went, you know what? I got this idea. We're going to put wording on there. Can you imagine how big the wording was, though, in the old days when they were bigger? Of course, you know why they did that.
I have no idea.
Well, they had no texting. So you had to put all this on. Will you be mine? Meet me at the, I mean, come on. It had to be, but interesting stuff.
It is a really interesting story. I mean, imagine this was a pharmacist who was making these throat lozenges and had to mass produce them. And he must have one day said, hey, what am I doing this for? Let me make candy. And he started what is now known as Necco.
And 8 billion of them are produced every year.
That's crazy.
I don't know who eats 8 billion of them. Do you? I mean, because they didn't really taste that good. They were okay.
And these are 8 billion, like these little candy hearts. So that maybe they include the sweet hearts and some of those other things. I don't know, but that's still a lot.
Well, that makes sense.
8 billion hearts.
It's a lot of hearts.
Well, if you don't have candy and you don't have roses, you forgot to buy jewelry,
you're in big trouble.
There's still hope.
There is?
There is still hope.
Tell us, Kristen, what would be the hope?
Write a poem.
You're in trouble. Most men right now just went, oh.
No. Write a poem. So, interestingly enough, now we don't know whether this story is completely accurate or not because there were some conflicting stories out there. But in 1415, a duke was credited with writing the first Valentine, started writing the first Valentine. He was incarcerated for political reasons during the war, and he wrote a poem to his wife. So supposedly it happened in 1415, but there are also some people who say, yeah, I don't think so. We think it was written later, like the 1840s.
So he was a duke, right?
He was a duke.
Duke Charles of Valentine.
That's his name. That's a good one, but no, that was not his name.
Google it. I'm sure it's there. Oh, but hey, listen, since then, men are so much more thankful for the folks at Hallmark. No, they don't pay us to be on here, but they now take care of that for us. They make sure that men look smart every year. But the interesting thing about this, 145 million cards are exchanged every year.
Yeah, and that does not include the little kids' Valentine's cards.
It. Or you and I, who first Valentine's Day together after being married, we misplaced our Valentine's Day cards to each other and found them later and gave them to each other at another Valentine's Day. Saved us money.
We just wrote 2 years on them.
Yes, exactly. But it got kind of an interesting story. 1840s is where they really feel that kind of started the whole Valentine's Day card thing. And it was a lady, and she had lace and ribbon, and I'm sure it was beautiful.
Yeah, and she was credited with the first person who mass-produced Valentine's Day cards.
She was Madame Hallmark. She knew the Duke. Valentine. Those are 5 things we think you should know about Valentine's Day here on the Rob and Kristen Show. No, not nearly as serious as a bear, but we got through it and made it not as fun as the bear things, but a lot of fun. So now time for an interview, and this is really cool. Interview that we did in the past. A couple days ago. But this is a really cool book, and you will see Kristen smile a lot. Let's throw it to us in Studio B. Off camera, I just jokingly told Kristen that these are some of my favorite parts of our show. I talk for about 20 seconds. I smile a little bit, and then I disappear. Exits. Exit stage right even.
I don't understand how you cannot love to read. That's just something, and I know my niece doesn't like to read either. One of my brothers doesn't like to read. I don't get it. I love the idea of picking up a book and escaping into a different place, into a different time. I just don't understand you guys. Like people who don't like to read, I just don't understand it at all. At all. It's one of my
We're
favorite things to do.
we're special people. Just
Yes, you are.
we have a different mindset. And she was the author today was telling us how many books she's written, and I was trying to figure out, other than college, if I had read that many books. So it is always exciting here on the Robin Kristen Show to welcome authors because it makes my wife feel happy. Sarah, it is nice to meet you, and I almost did it right now. Almost messed up your last name because being Scandinavian,
Yeah.
I would say Sundin, but that's wrong, and we don't want to be wrong, especially to somebody that's written 16 books. Is it 16?
17.
17. See,
17.
I was wrong even on that. Welcome to the Robin Kristen Show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is so awesome to have you here, Sarah. And we really appreciate you taking time to join us and to join our audience and let our audience just into your life as a writer just a little bit. So one of the things that I'm always curious about is just how in the world do you come up with characters for these books?
Well, each one is a little different. Sometimes it's just a character who comes to my mind who I really want to write. And other times the story drives the character. And in this case, this one did. I started with this image of a spy landing on Scottish shores and being captured by a Scottish, kilt wearing Scotsman. And that was the image that drove this story. And so then I kind of had to backtrack and go, what kind of woman would become a spy for Germany? Of course, she can't be a Nazi because my readers aren't going to want to
Right?
go along on the ride with a true Nazi. And even if she converts on the second page to not be a Nazi, that's a hard sell. So I had to, come up with a real legitimate reason why she would become a spy for Germany and still be a compassionate heroine. And so I came up, as I was thinking of this scenario, and here is this impulsive, confident, um, fun-loving woman who loves to act and enjoy. Just enjoys life, and she can't imagine failure. She just can't. And so she gets involved with this scheme, and she's in the Dutch resistance,
Mhm.
and she's infiltrated the Dutch Nazi party because her sister actually is a member of the Dutch
Mhm.
Nazi party. And so it's easy for her to get in that way. And then she reports back to her friends who are in the Dutch resistance, and they put it in their newspaper. So she's been doing that, but then she realizes that she's in danger. And at some point, she's going to mess up and they're going to realize who she is and she'll be dead. So she wants to escape. And meanwhile, she finds out they're recruiting spies to go to Britain. And Cilla, being impulsive, says, that's for me. I speak fluent English. I was educated in Britain. Sign me up, thinking that Germany is going to give her a free ride to Britain. All she has to do is fool them through the training period, which she does, and get deposited on British shores. Everything goes great up to plan until she meets Lachlan Mackenzie. And so that her character really came out of that scenario. And
Mhm.
then Lachlan's also, what kind of man turns a woman in to be executed as a spy? And
Right.
so he is a man of duty and honor. He is a naval officer. uh, the worst thing he could do is to be compassionate to this woman and release her into the wild. Have a Nazi, oh, it's okay. You're a Nazi spy. Go run free. No, of course, he has no choice. He
Right.
must turn her in. And he also struggles with mercy and trust. So that's his story where he comes from. And it really came out of that scenario, that image that drove that story of this woman landing and being captured. And so their characters came out of that. And then the rest of the story flows out of who these characters are, how they need to grow and change, and the troubles I throw in their way to encourage them to change.
That is super interesting, and I've gotta tell you, at the beginning of the story, I really did not like her sister at all. Her
Mhm.
sister was, like, crass, she was rude, just everything that you just don't like, you did such a good job of, like, painting this picture. So I've gotta ask you, so it doesn't have to be just this book, okay?
Mhm.
Think of all of your 17 novels that you've written so far.
Yeah.
If you could pick one character, who is your favorite character if you could jump into her place in history in your book, who would that be and why?
Oh, honestly, it would be Evelyn Brand in When Twilight Breaks. She is a journalist, and I pick her because she is unlike me. I am cautious. I'm more like Lachlan. I'm a cautious rule follower. I do see more. I see more gray than black. He's a black and white. I see lots of gray, but Evelyn is bold. She's a journalist, and she is in Nazi Germany in the early years before the war, and she just has no fear. And she gets to go everywhere that's interesting and report on
Mhm.
everything that's interesting. And she knows how to talk to people and to get them to tell her stories. I just found her such an amazing character to write because she's not like me. And oftentimes, no, I do like writing the characters who are more like me, but the ones who are not like, and Cilla is very unlike me. And she was fun to write because she's so witty and fun loving, and I'm kind of a stick in the mud, as my family. So, she was just so much fun, and she was fun to write, and it was very enjoyable for me to watch Scylla and Lachlan get together with their conversations. The banter just flies because she just teases him and rails on him, and he fires right back at her. So the banter between these two was just a joy to write.
So when you're doing the research for these books, because, these are very historical, they're these all of these books, and I know that you told me off screen that you only like to work on one project at a time, and there's a lot of research involved. What is the oddest thing that you found in research when it comes to World War II and the spies? What kinds of things what was the strangest thing that you found out in
Oh.
that research as far as how the spies operated or how they got information through?
The whole, system between the German Abwehr was the military intelligence group that sent the spies abroad, and they were surprisingly inept. They chose, uh, the worst possible people to be spies. They were just some of them didn't even speak English, and they sent them to England thinking that they were just gonna be super spies somehow. I don't know what they
Mhm.
were thinking. And, they just sent these horrible people over to Britain. Well, the British captured every single one of the German spies that were sent over except one, and that one, he didn't have a working radio, so he was useless.
Hmm.
And he ran out of funds and he committed suicide. So he did nothing good for the German cause. So basically, Germany never had an effective spy in England. And the British figured that out fairly early. They decoded the radio traffic that the Abwehr was using internally to communicate with each other. And they were able to figure out, and they could tell which spies the Germans trusted and which ones they didn't. And because the British had turned, they when they captured a German spy, they gave them a choice. You can be hanged because that's what we do to spies, or you can turn and be a double agent and work for us and send misleading messages back to Germany. And they were able to use those misleading messages knowing that they had cracked the code, and the Germans tended to transmit it word for word, which is a stupid thing to do
Mhm.
in the intelligence community. And they were able to realize that they every single agent they called up, they had them in oh, I can't remember the word, collared them basically. So they
Mhm.
had them all in harness. They all
Mhm.
had them all in harness, either in prison or they were working for them. So, but these stories, I mean, every single one of I read so many of these, mini biographies of these double agents. They were all characters. Some of them were just downright criminals. Most of them were sleazy. Some of
Mhm.
them were, there were um, rich socialites who were spoiled rotten and demanded to be treated. So, I mean, they were all, I mean, they were almost, they were over the top characters that I couldn't
Mhm.
actually put in a story.
Right?
Because if I wrote them, people would be like, "Oh, yeah, right." But they were actually like they were so over the top. So, the whole thing was just amazing reading.
Well, Rob was telling me about a story that his mom told him, and Rob, if you could tell the story, I thought it was really interesting. It was a story about World War II that his mom had found out, when she was having a conversation about somebody who was a spy, and it's super interesting, and, Rob, I'll just let you tell the story.
So it was my uncle Chris's mother, and they were from Denmark, and she was part of the Danish resistance. And she would ride her bike into town where she would take all the information
Mhm.
inside the bike, and she would go do her shopping. They would take the bike apart, which had all the
Mhm.
information inside it, then reassemble it, and she would ride back home with
Yeah,
it. That was her way of doing it. It was interesting, um, that several of her friends were caught by the Nazis as
yeah,
spies, and they were instantly killed. And
yeah,
she said she knew she had to do it whether she lost her life or not.
yeah. I actually wrote a novel about the Danish resistance.
Oh,
The
really?
Yeah, it's called The Sound of Light. But yeah, Danish was oh, Denmark's a fascinating story during World War II. So yeah, yeah, that's a very typical story with the resistance where they were communicating and they paid with their lives if they were caught. So
It's a
very how
it
interesting.
it's amazing to me that people felt so strongly about their own cause, and you do
Mhm.
such a great job of pulling those things into the stories that you weave, and in this book, Midnight on the Scottish Shore, where you really she has to make a choice. They all have to make
Yeah.
choices, and to me, that's really interesting. It's like where their choices take them,
Mhm.
and in real life too, because I know that this is a story that you created, but you create it based upon historical facts, things that you read. But this was real life for people during that time and during World War II, where they really truly had to make that decision. What do
Mhm.
they do?
Yeah.
And I love the book. I love everything that you've been talking about with, how you create the stories. So can you tell me, are you working on something now? What's next?
Oh yeah. So the one I actually just finished and turned it in. It will be coming out in February 2026. We don't have a title yet, and it is set in Jersey in the British Channel Islands, which were
Okay.
occupied by Germany. So if you've ever heard of the Guernsey Literary Potato
Mhm.
Peel, the long title, that same. So Guernsey and Jersey are the two big islands in the Channel Islands. So I chose Jersey because it wasn't Guernsey. The Guernsey's kind of taken, so I chose Jersey, but Jersey has amazing stories. So in that story, I have Garrett van der Zee, who is Cilla's cousin, and he is in the Dutch resistance. And he and his cousin, or he and his best friend, joined this group called Organization Todt, which is a German group, that quasi-military group that built all the fortifications. And they're doing this so they can send out maps and diagrams of those fortifications to the Allies. However, they're expected to be in France, but they're sent to Jersey. They have no way of getting their maps and diagrams off of the island. And then they meet a young teenage boy who offers to help them. And Charlie happens to be the brother of Dr. Ivy Picot, who thinks very little of Garrett and his friends in Organization Todt, and she is busy treating escaped slave workers who are working for Organization Todt. So she is struggling. She is a Jersey woman, and she is going through all the shortages and issues that they're going through on Jersey and treating these people. And so there's this conflict, but
Oh,
it's
it
pretty.
sounds exciting.
Hey,
I,
Sarah, I want to ask a question really quick, and then I know we got to go. But when was the first time you went, I'm a writer? I like this. This is something I can actually do now.
Okay, I have the world's strangest story. I can actually tell you it was January 6th, 2000. And I am a pharmacist. I have majored in chemistry. I am a pharmacist. I up until 20 I quit in 2019 because writing was a full-time job. But I had everything I wanted. I loved my job. I was able to work part-time with little kids. And I woke up that morning with a dream that I knew was a novel and I had to write it. And I can't and it's never happened to me since. And that dream drove me. Those characters drove me. It was a compulsion almost. My husband was really worried about me. and and since then the story ideas have kept coming, and so yeah, for 25 years now, 25 years I've been writing. And so that's, tells you how old I am.
So so you had this dream and you wrote the story. Well, what happened? What happened at that point? Did you say, "I gotta pitch it to somebody," or what
Oh yes,
happened?
it was horrible though. But yes, I pitched it. It was a horrible book. I still love it, but I'm looking at it now. There's nothing there. And I'd written a simple contemporary romance, and then I wrote another one, and they were very important because they taught me to write. They taught me that I could write a novel because I'd never done anything like that before,
Mhm.
and that I can complete a novel. And then as I was finishing up the second one, I had the idea for a World War II novel. And I didn't think it would involve that much research because I got an A in history in high school. I mean, how hard could it be? And my grandparents were in World War II, so they told stories, no problem. And fortunately, I was naive because once I started getting into it, I realized, oh my goodness, there's so much research. But at that point, I grew to love the research, and that drove it. So the story drove the research, and the research drives the story, and it's a cycle. But yeah, I have a very odd path for a writer. If you talk to most writers, like, I knew I wanted to be a novelist since I first picked up a book at the age of 15, and it's all very romantic. I'm like, no, I wanted to be a chemist, and then I was a pharmacist, and I loved healthcare, and
Oh,
I think
well,
that's so interesting, I love the fact that God had a plan for you, and it was different than what your plan for yourself was.
oh
And,
yes,
I think it's so important, for our viewers to just kinda remember that, hear that, remember it. This is more than just, and we want you to go out and get Sarah's book. Definitely go out and get her book and get other books too. I think I've said this before, you can go to you scan the QR code that's on the screen in front of you, go to Amazon.com. But this is more than just about it being a book. This is also about the fact that, God has a plan for everybody. And you just have to be open and listen to whatever that plan might be and just be willing to do the things that God asks you to do. And so if you're watching us, know that if you think you still don't have direction from God, just ask and he'll deliver the answer. You just have to be willing, I guess, Sarah, to do the work, right?
oh yeah. It was faith and obedience, and I
Mhm,
didn't want to do it. I really did not want to do it, and it was about obedience and
mhm.
stepping out with fear and trembling. And yeah, and it's been a wild roller coaster, and I wouldn't change it for a thing, including 8 years of rejection letters,
Oh,
which was very hard. And it was God did some amazing work in my life through those rejection letters and through that time of not knowing if I was doing the right thing or not. So I really had to rely on Him, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
well, we're really glad that you didn't. Thank you so much for being a guest here today on the Robin Kristen Show.
Thank you for having me.
that was a super fun interview.
It really was. We enjoyed our time that we had with author Sarah Sundin, and we hope that you will go and check out this book. Get it from your library, get it from your bookstore, Amazon.com. We just really enjoy supporting these authors, and we hope that you do too.
It is. It was a lot of fun. Hey, listen, we hope you enjoyed this special edition, the Valentine's Day edition of the Robin Kristen Show. Now we want you to go out and live an abundant life.